management costs and processes.
So the biggest thing that I want to speak on this particular slide is transparency, transparency, transparency. Property management companies are one of two ways. Either they're going to be very open and honest about their processes, or they're going to have a lot of junk. And when I say junk, I mean fees, I mean policies, things that are going to affect your bottom line. So let me throw some examples out there. What is their management rate? What rate are they charging you? For Real Wealth clients, we charge 6.5%. My largest competitors charge 8, 10, and 12. So what is their fee to begin with? And what does it include? Is it an inclusive rate? Do they upcharge repairs? So we, for instance, don't. Whatever the actual repair cost is, that's what the owner pays. A lot of companies, they're going to upcharge those repairs. They call them either service fees or handling fees or oversight fees. And so every time you make a repair, you are going to pay the property manager to handle it. My understanding of being a property manager is that's what the management fee is for. And so when I started my company, we started it with the understanding that that's what we're paid for and we're not going to upcharge. And so we don't. Do they charge you to send you your money? Now I put here, do they charge you to ACH your money? Now that's an interesting line to put here because some property managers still snail mail a check. We don't do that for a lot of reasons. Number one, I think it's risky. Number two, it's time consuming. Number three, it's costly. And number four, it makes you wait for your money. We pay out at the beginning of the month. Once the tenant pays, the rent clears, we ACH out the money to the owner. Some companies hold it all month and then remove expenses from the rent. And so it's very important you ask these questions. And I'm not here to say that my way is the best. What I'm here to say is I do it that way for a reason, and my clients know going in what to expect. And so it's important when you hire a property manager that you also know what to expect. Do they send you statements or do they give you open access? This goes back to transparency. The system that I use, vendors, owners, tenants, and we all have access to the same property management portal. So you see the same information that I do. And the thing that's so important about that is that you know exactly what information is there. There are companies that I take over from where they have one system that tenants go in and pay, and then they pay their staff to manually input that payment information into a management software. So now you've got room for error, you've got room for dishonesty, you've got room for all sorts of issues. And then on top of that, they have to, at the end of the month, prepare a statement and email it or mail it to you. And so you're at their beck and call. You can't see information up to date during the month, so you don't know the status of your property. With our system, you can literally click one button and get into the report software and pick whatever information you want, whatever time period you want. A lot of our clients are international, and their time period is completely different from ours. And so they're not going to want to see a statement from January 1st to December 31st, or they may want to see a statement for one property, not the whole account. And so our system allows you to do that. And so that's one of the questions you want to ask whoever you're hiring. How up-to-date are they technologically, and how transparent are they? Do they work with IRAs? We have tons of clients that buy with 401ks. We take care of mailing the checks to the IRA. We don't charge for that. Do other companies do? Some do. That's another question you want to ask. And even if you're not buying with an IRA now, if you're making enough money in real estate, odds are you will be. And so that's an important thing to know up front, because the last thing you want to do is hire a manager and have to move over something so small like that. Another piece in Texas is state law requires when a tenant vacates is you have to do a 30-day itemization of deposit. And so the security deposit that's held, if you're going to withhold any money from it, you have to send tons of evidence, and you have to specifically itemize each item to that tenant. Some property management companies don't do this. Some property management companies charge for it. That's another question you want to ask. And each state has their own laws and regulations about this. Texas is probably going to be one of the easier ones. So if Texas is that strict, I would hate to see what other states require. The other thing that's very, very important is to ask, do they hold your money in an escrow account? Does their management system let you see the balance in that escrow account at all times? Obviously mine does. I know others don't. And so that's an important thing, because you are going to have money being held with this property management company, and you are responsible for the tenant's deposit they are holding on the tenant's behalf. You should be able to see that information anytime you want for your own protection. And so it's very, very important that that's a question that you ask. So this is probably the thing that sets us apart the most. And the reason I say that is when I take over a property account, and a lot of my business, as I mentioned, is taking over where other management companies have failed or been negligent or whatever you want to call it. And we go visit the property and it is trashed, it's destroyed, it's vacant, it's vandalized. We never know what we're walking into. It's a scary situation when a landlord comes to us 4 months after a tenant has vacated, has no idea the property's vacant, and it has $20,000 in vandalism. And that is something that I run into every single week. How does that happen? How does something like that happen? Well, it starts day one of the lease. When a tenant moves into a property, they need to know that a property manager is going to be checking on that home throughout their lease. They need to know it's going to be done by qualified individuals. We, for instance, use off-duty police officers to check our properties once a quarter. Many, many homes I take over, the property manager has never visited the home, does not even have a key to the home. It sounds unfathomable, but it's a normal situation we run into every single day. We do those quarterly visits. We put in our lease that we can enter at any point without notice, and we make sure those tenants know that we will be in there and off-duty police officers will be in there. We do all that at no charge. So it's important you're asking your management company, are you going to be visiting my home? Will you tell me if there's an issue, and will you charge me for going? 3 very, very important pieces of your investment, because again, whether you sell now or whether you sell in a decade, that house has to be in good condition. And on top of that, if the property is vacant, you're going to lose your insurance coverage. And so that's a very, very important thing that you are monitoring, and you make sure your property manager is monitoring. When we do our walkthroughs, the things that we check for and things that I would recommend you talk to your manager about checking for are the air filters being changed? If not, it can compromise your AC system. So when we go, if it's not done, we do it and bill it back to the tenant. Are they checking for lawn maintenance? Are they checking for watering the yard and the foundation? Are they looking to see any possible city or HOA violations or lease violations? Something as small as an above-ground pool or a trampoline can void your insurance coverage. Tenant damage, unauthorized pets or occupants, illegal activities, signs of financial struggles, these are all the things that your property manager should be checking for. Now, your property manager may not do it as frequently as we do. I made a choice, again, when we started the company, that that was the only way to do it, and so I've stuck by that. Other property managers, I've seen a few that'll do it every 6 months or at every lease renewal. It's up to you how comfortable you are and how frequent the property manager is going. But it's important you know what to expect, because what you don't want is for that tenant to give notice a year into their lease, your manager to go visit at move out, and you to have a $10,000 repair bill, because that happens. And that's why we do these visits. And so just make sure you know what you're signing into and what you're agreeing to, and making sure that they're checking on the home for you.
Okay. Now, I just want to clarify, Leah, that one of the things you said is you run into this situation every day where properties haven't been cared for, and I want to clarify that's not because you didn't. It's because you're inheriting.
Oh, no. You know, the thing that's interesting is when a tenant moves in and we do that first walkthrough, very, very rarely do we find significant issues, but when we do, all I can think about when we have to call the owner and discuss it and evict the tenant or demand the tenant fix it and pay for it, whatever the situation may be, the only thing I think is, what if it had been a year? What if it had been 2 years? And that's really what we're talking about here. Doing quarterly walkthroughs is not going to stop tenants from damaging property. It's not going to stop it. What it's going to do is it's going to minimize the risk. And everything we do is about minimizing risk.